Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Hitesh Matharu, PR head at UPSC's student chapter, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to the sixth session of our Azure AI Engineer Associate Bootcamp. Today, we will dive into advanced language AI applications. This session will build on the basics we've covered, helping you leverage AI to understand and process natural language at an advanced level. Today's session will explore advanced concepts and applications of language AI. From language understanding to text analytics, you'll learn how to build smarter applications using Azure AI services. Get ready for an exciting deep dive. We're honored to have Ayush Rathi, Senior Engineering Manager at Walmart Global Tech, with us today. Ayush has extensive experience in AI and cloud solutions, and he will guide us through some of the most advanced applications of language AI, offering invaluable insights into its real-world use cases. Without further ado, I'd like I'd now like to invite Ayush to take over and lead us through this insightful session.
Thanks, Hitesh. So, hi everybody. I am Ayush Rathi and working as Senior Engineering Manager at Walmart, and I do lead a lot of Azure developer communities across India. So, yesterday we kind of talked about what AI is, what are the things which we need to basically keep in mind when we are talking about building a responsible AI. And then we kind of did some walkthrough around Azure AI Speech Service and the Speech Studio. So, continuing on to that part of the OpenAI and the cognitive services, where we yesterday looked at some of the capabilities of the speech service, where we did a text to speech and a speech to text. Uh, so let me quickly go to the speech studio, and today we do a kind of good round of hands-on. So when it comes to the Azure speech service, there are a whole lot of bunch of different options that Azure provides you, where one is captioning with speech to text. Then there is a post call transcription and analytics, specifically very useful from a BPO standpoint or a call center standpoint. Then we did talk about live chat avatar creation, language learning, and video translation. Some of these are very new, which are available in preview. Now, when it comes to speech to text, we did looked at real time speech to text. So what I'll quickly do is probably turn off my headphone, or probably I'll switch the speaker to. Okay, perfect. Let's see if you will be able to hear something. So let's do a real time speech to text. Just give me a sec. I'm not sure if you are all able to see my screen. Okay, so I hope you are now able to see my screen. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna record some audio with microphone, and then kind of we will see it kind of also does a real-time text translation. So yesterday, what we primarily uploaded was a textual file or a audio file, not really textual, but an audio file, which it kind of went through and then did a real-time text conversion. At the same time, if you're speaking something, it also does a text conversation of it. So let's say if I say hello and welcome to Azure Developer Community session from Dehradun. So it kind of also does a real-time text translation for you. So what you speak, it kind of converts it. So this is one capability where you can use a speech studio. Another thing that we have got as part of the Azure AI Speech Studio is the translation service, right? So you speak in a language and then you want to get it converted to some another language. So let's say if I say, okay, I want to get it converted to Hindi, and then hello. and welcome to the session on Azure AI Speech Service. So you can see it kind of did a real-time text translation from English to Hindi. So this is again very very useful, specifically where you can use APIs and different SDKs to integrate into your application and make it more user friendly. And from an accessibility standpoint, also you can kind of ensure that it is not just available for users from certain specific areas, but you can target a greater set of audience. So let's say you want to publish an application into Europe and then kind of use French and few other languages, you can kind of have that thing making use of this service. So that's on the speech translation service where you can kind of use the capabilities of the speech translation. Now, all of these things that we are talking about primarily are kind of leveraging NLP. And what NLP is, it's primarily one of the machine learning technologies where it gives your computer an ability where you can interpret the text, manipulate, and then comprehend it as part of the human language. And that's what is happening here. The text or the audio that we are basically speaking, it's kind of getting interpreted at the same time, it's getting manipulated and comprehended. So that is where the use cases of NLP come in. And today, if you look at from an enterprise perspective, a lot of organizations standpoint, there are large volumes of voice and text data coming in from various communication channels. It could be emails, it could be your text messages, it could be your social media news feeds, it could be videos, it could be audios, and a lot more. So all of these things are primarily using NLP software to automatically process the data, analyze the data, look at the intent of it or the sentiment of it. That's part of the message, and then respond in real time to the human communication. Now, when you're using these services, why is NLP very, very important today? Can anybody answer? Why is NLP very, very important? Why NLP? So today it is very, very critical to fully and efficiently analyze the text and the speech data. And kind of this applies to a lot of enterprise use cases, companies use cases, where they're trying to leverage this NLP for a lot of automated tasks. It could be right from process, analyze, and archiving the large documents to analyzing the customer feedback, or it could be call center recordings. It could be you're trying to run some kind of chatbots for automated customer service, or you want to basically answer questions like who, what, when, where, right? The four W's. Or you're trying to look at some text classification, text extraction. So this NLP can tightly be integrated into your customer facing application where you can communicate more and very efficiently with the customers. Let's take an example where let's say there is a chatbot which is analyzing and sorting the customer queries. At the same time, it is also responding automatically to the common questions and redirecting complex queries to the customer support. Now, today this flexibility is given to you within WhatsApp also, right? When you try to open a WhatsApp business account, you get that flexibility where if a person is asking few specific question, generalized question, you can kind of build that kind of Q&A bot within WhatsApp where it will automatically give the answers of those questions to the user, or it will try to make that conversation interactive where user probably provide some input, and then WhatsApp in turn will give you four options and ask you to choose one option to gather or gain further more information and provide you with the right set of data. So if you look at from a perspective of the business use cases, obviously there is one use case which is sensitive data redaction. Now, specifically, if I talk about industries like, let's say, insurance or legal, or yesterday, I think somebody was talking about the healthcare, these sectors process, sort, and retrieve large volumes of sensitive documents, right? Because if it is insurance, there are going to be a whole lot of bunch of insurance documents. If it is legal, again, you're going to go with a whole lot of bunch of those legal documents. Similarly, for healthcare, there's a patient data. So there are large volumes of sensitive documents, which could be medical records, which could be financial data, could be private data. So instead of you reviewing them manually, you can use NLP technology to redact personally identifiable information and then at the same time protect the sensitive data. So not sure how many of you have heard about Chisel AI, which kind of helps the insurance carriers to extract the policy numbers and expiration dates. And today you would have seen this is something which all of us see day in, day out. If you look at your insurances are going to expire, you start getting those calls, right? So somehow those companies are trying to extract that information and provide you with the context of the data so that they can reach out to you. So that is where again comes the use case of the NLP. So this is one speech translation service. We'll talk more in terms of how you can use NLP and what are the different services available from a language standpoint and speech standpoint. Custom speech we did talk about yesterday, and then we looked at the speech translation. There are text to speech services where you can create your own voice gallery. We did look at audio content creation and whole lot of bunch of things around it. So that's primarily from a perspective of speech studio. Now, apart from it, there is one more thing which is available where you can do the analysis of the text as part of the language studio. So to go to the language studio, you can primarily kind of go to language.cognitive.azure.com. So here it has got whole lot of bunch of different NLP features. Let me quickly sign in. So this is the updated version of the language studio. I have got a directory which is the Microsoft Enter ID. Let's select a subscription, and then we will go with a language resource type, and I will create a new language resource since it does not exist. So I'll click on create, and then it basically allows you to do a whole lot of bunch of different things, and these are the default features which comes along with the language service. There are some custom features, like if you want to create a custom Q&A, you can also select this, which will be created alongside it. And then if you want to do things like text classification, the named entity recognition, so these are some further things which are basically available as part of the NLP. So specifically when we talk about things like named entity recognition, so this process primarily identifies unique names with respect to people. It could be places, it could be events, and a lot more. So NLP softwares makes use of this named entity recognition where they want to determine the relationship between different entities as part of a sentence. So let's say if there is a sentence called as Ayush went to vacation. Ayush went on a vacation to France, and let's say he indulged himself in the local cuisine. So NLP software will basically pick Ayush and France as a special entity as part of the sentence. And then this can further be expanded by co-reference resolution, where it tries to determine if different words are used to describe the same entity. So it could be like Ayush and he. Both of these words are pointing to the same person. So that's where it kind of uses the named entity recognition. Similarly, there are things like sentimental analysis, right? So what is the sentiment analysis? It's again an AI based approach where you're trying to interpret the emotions which are conveyed by the textual data. So it's not just that when you speak, you try to detect the sentiment, but also from what you write, right? AI can basically detect sentiments using the NLP. So NLP software will analyze the text for words or phrases which are trying to show whether you are happy, whether you are having some doubt, whether you are regretting, or there is a dissatisfaction, or there are some hidden emotions. So that's where comes the sentiment analysis. Similarly, there are things like speech recognition we did talk about. There is word sense disambiguation. So there are a whole lot of bunch of different things which are basically available as part of the language service. So we'll continue to create the resource. I'll select a resource group, call it, okay, let's create a new one, language service dash RG. And region, I'll go with East US. Let's give a name, Ayush language service. I'll by default go with the free F0 tier, which gives me 5k transactions per 30 days, creating it in East US, and then it will basically create search index. So again, I'm going with the free tier. And then you can see yesterday we were talking about the responsible AI. So it's giving you those responsible AI notices and basically diverting you to some of the documents around how you can make use of the responsible AI. Let's move on. On the network, I'm keeping it to as is. We don't need a system identity. Let's review and create this resource. Okay, since I already have one service, let me see if I'm able to make use of the same. So we won't end up creating the another one. Okay, let me go with a paid tier. So let's use an S1 tier here and then see if it works. Since I'm using one of the free tier offering for the speech studio, it may not really be allowing me to create the another service using a free tier. I think should be the same error. So we will also change this to basic. Perfect. So let's create this. Meanwhile, it's creating, I'll download some sample data. So this is a sample data that I'm gonna use. So you can see these are a whole lot of bunch of sample data which are available, and this is a sample data set which is having close to, I would say, 200 documents, and then each of this document is having summary of a movie where it kind of has things like whether it belongs to mystery or drama or thriller or comedy or action. So we'll primarily use this. Now this deployment is completed, so let me try to refresh here, and we can select the language service. Perfect. So now our service is created. We will upload that data to the blob storage. So now you can see the service that we created, we are able to use it as part of the language studio. So it's now using Ayush language service that I created. Now here there are different things, like some of them are featured. Then there are things like extract information, where you can extract personally identifiable information as part of the document. You can extract some key phrases. You can extract named entities. You can extract health information, right? Similarly, there are things around classification of the text. So where you want to do some custom text classification. So we will primarily look at doing a custom text classification where we want to classify text as part of the movie data that I just basically looked at. So we'll go to the custom text classification, and then so I will basically choose an existing storage account, which is Techtrix OpenAI, and then I will connect this storage account. Or what we will do is, let's create quickly a new one where we can upload all that sample data. So storage account in Azure is basically an entity where you can use four different services: blobs as in object storage, files as in file shares, tables for your NoSQL tables, and then apart from it, you can also use queues. So we'll create a new, call it as language storage. So I'll use this. We'll provide the name to the storage account. Ayush language storage. Let's see if this is available. So guys, this name has to be globally unique. If let's say Ayush language storage account name is not available, it will probably start giving you an error. So you'll see cross mark over here. East US would be the location. So we'll quickly check. We deployed our project in the East US as well. And then we will select blob storage, files, or tables and queues. So we want to go with blob storage. So that's the primary service standard, and I'll go with LRS. The redundancy choices here are primarily from a perspective of how your data will be replicated. So I'm going with the least cost option, which is LRS, where it kind of creates three copies of your data within the same region. In case, let's say you're with a production environment, I'll highly recommend going with GRS. So at least it kind of replicates your data into two different regions, three copies in primary region and three copies in the secondary region. Moving on in the advanced, we will allow the anonymous access for now. Rest all, I'm just going to keep it to default. Networking with enabling public access, that's good. Data protection, I'm disabling so that nothing goes into the soft delete state. So after the demo, I'm able to delete all the things in one shot. And let's review and create this storage account. Let's click on create to create this. Meanwhile, I'll see if there are any questions. Okay. So it's creating the storage account, and within this storage account is where I'm going to actually go ahead and kind of upload all the data. Perfect. So our storage account is created. Let's go to this storage account and then we will go to containers within this. So you can see there are all four services: containers, file shares, queues, and tables. Containers here doesn't really refer to the world of Docker and Kubernetes container, but it's primarily more about, you can think of it as a folder structure where you can upload your data. Right? So it's very similar to buckets and AWS. That's what here is container. We'll create a container. Let's call this as example data, and I'm keeping the access at a container level. Let's click on create to create this container. And once our container is created, we will be able to upload the data within this container. So here we'll go to upload, and then we will browse through all those custom classification files that we downloaded. These are all 212 files. Let's click on upload. So it will upload all of those files. So meanwhile, it's finishing the upload. Let's try to refresh this and select Ayush language storage. Moving on. So it kind of needs a blob data contributor access, storage blob data contributor. So this is the managed identity that was created. So this resource that we basically created requires this role as well, which was not added. So we are adding this role. Okay, it says the assignment already exists. Okay, let me start again. Seems it got stuck. It's not moving. Yeah. So it's the right set of resources which are connected. Now you can go with single label classification, or if you want, you can go with multi-label classification. So when you go with multi-label classification, every file can have one or more labels. When you go with single label, your file will only have one label. So depending on your choice, you can either go with multi-label or single label. So let's say in my case, we'll go with multi-label, and you can give a project name. So I call it an Ayush language. Primary language, we will basically go with English. Does your dataset include documents that are not in the same language? So for now, I'm just not selecting it, expecting everything to be in the same language. And then we select this container where we basically uploaded our files. And the container name here is example data. So we basically select this, and then we will select my documents are already labeled and I have correctly formatted the JSON label files. And then we can choose the label document. Okay, it says portal cannot access your storage account. Please enable CORS policies on your storage account. So we will have to enable CORS. This is cross origin resource sharing. So we will allow everything. Okay, I think it's still enabling it. Okay, for now we'll say no, it's not labeled, and then let's create the project. Now this is where our project has been created, which is the Ayush language project. Okay, seems some issue with the portal where it's okay. So this seems to be an issue with the language.cognitive.azure resource portal. But maybe I'll quickly walk you through like what happens next. So once you've created this project, so what we initially did is we kind of downloaded the sample data from the Azure quick start page. We uploaded that data within the storage account. So a storage account is an entity where we are kind of storing that data so that this data can be picked up from the storage account and can be used within the Azure Language Studio as part of our project. Now, once this project is created, once you go to this project, you will basically be first doing a training job, right? So you first train your model. As part of training, what you can do is you can basically do a data splitting. So with all the data that we have given, we try to divide it between the training data and the testing data. So let's say you say I want to have 80% as my training data and 20% as my testing data. The data splitting will be automatically taken care by Azure, right? So it will automatically split the data, testing data from the training data. Now, once that is created, the next thing that you do is you try to deploy your model, right? So as part of the model deployment, you will either create a new deployment. If you have an existing deployment, you can also overwrite your existing deployment once the model is created, right? After that, you can do the testing of your model. So once you do the testing of the model, it will try to basically filter out the data as part of the kind of, moreover, I would say it would do the text classification of the data that we have provided as part of the testing of the model. So that's how the overall aspect of the custom text classification within the language studio functions. Now there are certain more options which are available for you to use within the language studio. So not just from a perspective of extracting the information or classifying, but also there is something called as creating your Q&A kind of service. So this is a question and answer service where again you can do text document or conversation summarization, and then kind of also if you want you can create things related to Q&A. Now Q&A is part of your NLP, where you can try to do a knowledge base creation, and from that knowledge base, if somebody tries to ask question, you can kind of create, train and publish the Q&A. So as part of the Q&A maker knowledge base, you start with the Q&A maker service within the Azure portal. So there is something called as Q&A maker.ai that you can use. So they have again integrated that Q&A maker tightly into the language studio itself. So it was earlier available separately. Now this is available as part of the language studio, where you can see understand questions and conversational language, where it can answer questions. You can create some custom set of questions and answers. So once you go here, you can again create a new project. How do you want to select the language for project? I want to select the language when I create a project, or I want to set the language for all projects created in this resource. So let's say we will just create it right now. And then we go to next, you enter the basic information. Let's say Q and A Ayush. Language, we will go with English. Default answer: when no answer is returned, no answer found. Now here it's basically creating this Q&A project for you. So this Q&A basically is created. You can add a resource. So there are options like URLs, files, or chit chat, where you will basically be able to add resources to your knowledge base, which is more about kind of creating the question. So you can kind of add the questions within this. You can also edit your existing knowledge base. So let's say there are already questions, Q&A pairs existing, you can also add and modify those question and answers. So this is your knowledge base, where you can basically add more questions. I've just added a default Q&A chit chat. So you can see there are like so many questions which are available. Right? Tell me about your gender. So there are by default some of the questions and answers which are available as part of the Q&A. You can also create a custom question and answer service available as part of this project as well, that you can integrate with your application. So these kind of Q&A visuals are also very Q&A services can also be tightly integrated into your applications, and chatbot where you're trying to design something related to Q&A, where somebody asks a question to your chatbot and then you want your chatbot to automatically answer. You can basically create this service and integrate it as well. And then you can deploy your own knowledge base. So if you have got, let's say, once you have kind of added resources, if you have got a URL where there are Q&As, or if you have got files where there are Q&As, you can basically add those files over here, and it will automatically read through the set of questions and answer which are available as part of the Q&A. So that's again part of the language studio, where it tightly gives you the flexibility of adding the Q&A and then kind of modifying the questions. You can also add it to your chit chat questions which are available. If you want to add more questions also, you can basically go ahead and add to these. So once the questions are available, let's say this is a question, you can go ahead and edit. If you want to edit the answer for this, even the answers can be added. There are a lot of alternate questions available for you. So this is a default functionality which is available over and above you being able to create your own custom Q&A service. Any questions? So I see question from Hitesh. Could you provide an example of how Azure AI can integrate with other Azure services to build a full NLP solution? So for example, if you've got Azure AI, like here we kind of integrated it with the Azure storage account, Hitesh, where we were trying to primarily kind of look at just give me 1 minute, I'm trying to, yeah. So here we were trying to integrate the Azure Language Studio with the blob storage, where the data was residing within blob storage. But again, depending on different use cases, where let's say if it is healthcare, right? So from a healthcare perspective, if I'm trying to build an NLP solution where I want to get the PII in, avoid the PII information of the user, I can make use of, let's say, Cosmos DB, where I store all the health documents and then maybe integrate this NLP service with the Cosmos DB to get and read all the data from there. Similarly, you can integrate it with blob storage. Another thing is you can publish some of these services directly as a web app, making use of the Azure App Service. So there is something called as Azure OpenAI. Let me also quickly share that. So if you look at, there is this Azure OpenAI Studio. So today we talk a lot about ChatGPT and Copilot, right? So if you're trying to create your own Copilot and you want to then publish it in the form of a web app where somebody can go to the Copilot and then basically ask questions related to your own personal data. So that personal data can reside within the Azure storage account. This Copilot service will read the data from there, and then you can publish this entire chat agent that you're creating in the form of an Azure app service. So all of them becomes these three things become tightly integrated to each other. So again, depending on what your use case is, you can kind of try to leverage different set of services and offerings. So this is the Azure OpenAI Studio, which is also called, you can go to it by using oai.azure.com, and there are different models available. If you go to the chat playground, here you can create your own deployment. So one is you trying to ask questions related to a generalized thing. Another is you trying to ask a question related to the data that you have provided, right? So here if I kind of look at, I can close this. So there is already a deployment called as Ayush test, where it's kind of having some of the data available. But if you want, you can create your own deployment and bring in your own data to this. Now how do you do that? Where you want to create your own deployments, you can go to deployments, and then you can deploy your own model. When you deploy your own model, you can provide a name to the model and use the model name. So let's say if I say deploy base model, and you can see it has got all the latest one also, GPT-4, GPT-4 real time, O mini, GPT-4 O mini. So you can select an existing model and build on top of that model. So let's say if I say I want to use GPT-O mini, which is for chat completion, I can confirm this, and then I can give a deployment name and deployment type. It will basically then go ahead and create this model for you. Now, since I already have something called as Ayush test created, and I'm not again creating it, but then I can create assistant. This is again in preview. So I say create an, let's use GPT-4, or maybe if I can use an existing one here. Okay, let's go to chat. Okay, this is where I have the option of add your data. So seems like they have changed a bit of UI. Now add your data is where you try to add a data source. So let's say we go with blob storage as a data source, and then we will select the blob storage that we just created, which was Ayush language storage. An example data was the container. There is a search resource that we created. Search type we are keeping it as keyword and a size of 1024 by default. Let it use system assigned managed identity. Okay, let me change the tier of this service. Okay, it won't allow me to change that. So so it is basically doing a data ingestion for you. So it's pulling all the information from the Azure storage account where we have kind of put up all the movie information, and then it will ingest that data. Once the ingestion is complete, you can start asking the questions related to the data that was provided. Meanwhile, it is doing this. Let me also help you with image generation services. So this is basically where it kind of makes use of DALL-E 3. Let's say if I say I want to create an image, or simply we ask how would Dehradun look 10 years from now. So this is where it will do a image creation where it is making use of the DALL-E 3 as the model, and based on that it will generate the images. So Copilot behind the scene uses DALL-E to do all the generation of the images. So you can see this is how it shows. This is how Dehradun would look 10 years from now. So this is an image generation service. Again, you can integrate it with your set of applications. Similarly, this is the completions playground where you start typing something and then it can do a chat completion for you. So if I just say I would like to explore Dehradun, see it automatically did a text completion for you. So text completion is more around where okay you start with a sentence and then it does a completion of the sentence going forward for you. So it kind of added different other location. It says suggest a travel itinerary for 10 days. You can also regenerate this content if you want this content to be something else. It kind of creates and devise itinerary for you. So this is around the completion platform, and chat is where we kind of okay it has done this now. So let ask how many movies are there. Okay, it says my question is too vague. So let's pick up something from here and then see what is there. Vice Squad. Let's try to ask about this. Tell me about Vice Squad. Okay, let's try something else. Let's try to ask who is Paul and see if it is able to answer. Yeah, so you can see now when I was very specific, until and unless I was not very specific about it, was not able to actually provide me the data, because what I really did was when I said tell me about Vice Squad, it might not be able to find the word Vice Squad, but there was a file called as Vice Squad. But when I specifically said okay tell me something about Paul, so it was able to tell me that okay in the movie Vanishing on 7th Street, Paul is a projectionist in Detroit theater. So it is basically pulling in this information from this file, and it has also given you references, right? So there are two references. Okay, one it got from this file, another it got from this file. So this is around where when you say okay I have a personally identifiable information which may be related to a patient's data or a healthcare data, but I cannot really make that information available for everybody. I just want to use it for my own purpose within my let's say healthcare department, for some of the people to access that information quickly. So you can kind of upload that data over here and then create your own chat playground where it will basically give you information about that very data. And again, when it comes to compliance, because a lot of you may have that question, okay, but when I upload the data of a patient, how Azure is being compliant with respect to different healthcare industry specific compliances. So you can see Azure is compliant with all of these different healthcare and life sciences related compliance categories. So there is HIPAA, there is high trust, right? There is ASIP, HTS. So that's primarily about the Azure OpenAI Studio and some of the functionalities it kind of gives you. Uh, I see question from Keshav. Can Azure AI language service be combined with generative AI models like GPT for enhanced language applications? Yes, you can kind of create an application and integrate these language services with the generative AI model. So that would kind of be a thing which Hitesh was talking about, where let's say I want to integrate Azure AI with some other Azure services to build a full NLP solution. So yes, these services can be tightly integrated. Obviously, it will require you to do some hands-on coding. So what happens is for let's say this chat service that we were just talking about, right? So this you can integrate once you create your own chat system. You can basically publish this in the form of a web app, Apart from it, you can use APIs. So from a language services standpoint, you can use APIs, and then you can create your own UI, integrate those APIs with your UI, where let's say somebody has uploaded a file, you basically run through that file to do some kind of sentimental analysis or different other text transformations, or do some NLP related operations on it, and then store that data within a storage account. From a storage account, you want to pull that data back to the chat GPT. So it's not very straightforward. There is kind of a data upload, then there is a data refinement done. That refined data again goes to a data store, and from that data store, that data is again getting pulled into service like an OpenAI Studio. So it's a complete end-to-end data flow that you're trying to create to basically play around with your own set of data and then make use of language services tightly integrated with the Azure OpenAI Studio. Hope that answers your question, Keshav. Perfect. So with that, we come to the end of the session. I hope you all have enjoyed it, and maybe you have got some insights into how the different set of services as part of NLP can be leveraged, and how you can kind of make use of those services. Over to you, Hitesh.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ayush, for sharing your knowledge and insights with us today. Your deep dive into advanced language AI applications has been extremely informative and has given us a lot to think about and apply. Moving on, we are excited to announce the winners of the previous sessions. For day 3, the winners are Akshat Jain, Hitesh Matharu, Paridhi Agarwal. For day 4, the winners are KS Akshay, Vinayak Sharma, and Raghav Singhal. Congratulations to each and every one of you. Your blogs and GitHub pages have stood out, and we are excited to see your continued participation. Before we wrap up, here's a reminder about the goodies. The top 3 participants with the best blog or GitHub page for each session will receive premium goodies from WizLabs and a 6-month WizLabs subscription to further enhance your AI skills. To qualify for these exciting prizes, make sure to write a blog or maintain a GitHub repository for each session. Share your learnings on LinkedIn or X, tagging Azure Developer Community, WizLabs, and Yash Katyal. Engage actively in the live sessions and follow our social media channels. The deadline for this session submission is Thursday, 9th November 2024, 6 p.m. Make sure you submit before the deadline. Special announcement. In this break before our next session, we encourage you to write a blog or maintain a GitHub repository solving a real life problem using the knowledge you've gained from the past 5 sessions. Be creative and use your skills to tackle challenges in natural language processing, computer vision, document intelligence, or generative AI. Submissions will be evaluated, and the best ones will receive exciting prizes, including premium goodies and a 6-month WizLab subscription. Thank you once again to everyone who joined us today. We appreciate your active participation and engagement. A big thank you to the amazing team who works tirelessly behind the scenes to make these sessions possible. We look forward to seeing you all again on 19th November for our next session on basics of implementing knowledge mining with Azure AI Search. Until then, don't forget to work on your real life problem, challenge, and keep sharing your learnings. Have a great day and see you soon. Thank you.